Once the Black Hawk War ends, Lincoln goes back to his campaign for the state legislature. Thing is, it's a little too late, and he loses. Now, in 1834, he runs again, and he actually wins. Now, the thing is, um, when he wins, he goes to the House of Representatives and he meets Major John Todd Stewart again. Now, Stewart again is pressing Lincoln and basically planting the seed in his head that, hey, maybe you should be a lawyer. Because at that time, Lincoln is a blacksmith. Now, the legend has it that Lincoln bought a box of junk from a man traveling west. Now, he bought it for $50. And in that box, at the very bottom, there was a book for first year students in law. That story is a myth. It's not true. Lincoln actually bought his first book for law at an auction. The other books he got were from Stewart and other lawyers. But once he had these books, he dug deep into them and he really um, read and really tried to understand the law. Now, in 1836, he moved from New Salem to Springfield, Illinois. And that's where he really started to devote his time into not only his job at the House of Representatives, but also studying to be a lawyer. Now, today, if somebody wants to be a lawyer, they have to take this exam called the bar exam. It's very grueling. It takes majority of the time it takes them 2 days. Here in California, it takes 2 days. But back then, all it took was a testament of good character and an enrollment by the clerk of the state Supreme Court. That was it. So on March 1st, 1837, Abraham Lincoln is officially a lawyer. So now he's a member of the House of Representatives for Illinois, and he's a lawyer. Now in 1842, he basically stops running for the House of Representatives and he's focused on his law practice. And there were some people in his party who were like, hey, you know what? Maybe you should run for governor. Lincoln at this point is like, no, I don't want to. He turns them down not once, but twice. He wants to practice his law practice. Now, the thing is, he does this for quite a number of years, about 4 years. But then this urge to go back into politics comes over him. And in 1846, he runs and wins to become a member of the House of Representatives in Congress for the state of Illinois. Now, if you remember from last semester, I was talking about the Mexican-American War, where Polk cried bloody murder, saying Americans were killed on American soil. You know, these Mexicans crossed the border and they killed our people on our land. And then the only person in Congress, not only the House of Representatives, but the Senate, the only person to speak up was Lincoln, who said, show me where exactly these soldiers got killed. And Polk wouldn't tell him. So this is a part where last semester and this semester starts to merge. Okay. Now Lincoln gave a lot of amazing speeches, including the Gettysburg Address, his first inaugural address, and the House Divided speech. But according to those who heard it, his most impressive and best speech could have been the, quote, lost speech. The reason it's called the lost speech is because nobody knows what was said. Lincoln, who wrote all his speeches down, apparently didn't either save it or didn't write it down. And on top of that, there were 40 reporters there, people who were supposed to report on what was said, how, and the mannerisms and stuff like that. And also, there was 1,000 people listening, and yet none of them wrote down what he said All they know is they listened and they were just amazed by what he said. Again, Lincoln has this way of captivating an audience with his language, his mannerism, and his tone. Now, again, Lincoln is part of the House of Representatives. And with the Dred Scott decision coming down, this really made Lincoln furious. Because if you remember from last semester, Dred Scott was the slave who went over from slave state to free state by his master, and then he returned to the slave state. And when his master died shortly after they returned, he tried to go back to the free states, and the slave owner's family was like, "No, you can't go back." And he was like, "Well, I lived in the free states for years. I only came back to help out your dad." So everyone knows once a slave goes into free territory, he is free. So I'm gone. And if you remember, the Supreme Court basically said that slaves had no rights, that they were basically property, and property has no rights. And the thing is, they said that they will never be citizens. And that really upset Lincoln because he was like, well, what's the whole point of having free and slave states if the Supreme Court basically says that they will never be citizens, they will never be free, they will never have rights? And that really upsets Lincoln. And he goes off and he gives a speech on the Dred Scott decision, and it's miraculous. Now he starts to run for Senate again, but he has an opponent, this guy named Stephen Douglas, which you can see on your right. Now, if you remember from last semester, I did talk about this for a little bit. Now, Lincoln, he's 6'4", right? And with his top hat, he's even a little bit taller, right? By at least a couple inches. Now, Stephen Douglas, he's 5'4". He's shorter, he's more stocky. So there's a big comparison physically between Lincoln and Douglas. But the thing is, both men have a way with words. They can captivate their audience. They can make sense of things. And their debates are so wonderful to listen or to read. Now, the thing is, people come to see them. They're buying tickets to watch them go at it, and they're going full force. And Lincoln is against slavery, whereas Douglas is basically for slavery, and they're going back and forth, back and forth. Um, the election comes, and the thing is, Stephen Douglas wins. Lincoln won the popular vote, but Stephen Douglas won the election through Electoral College. The thing is, uh, Lincoln, he's not hurting for too long because the thing is, their debates, it gains national attention. And some people who were watching Lincoln early on were like, you know what, this is the same guy who challenged the president when he was a member of the House of Representatives, and now he's saying he's against slavery. So in September 1859, he is approached by this group, new Republican group, and they're telling him, hey, we want you to run for president. And so he does. He runs as a Republican for president, and him and his running mate, Hannibal Hamlin, uh, they go off on the campaign trail, and on November 6, 1860, they win the election. And Lincoln is our 16th president. Now, the thing is, with his winning the election and people knowing his stance on slavery, already southern states are talking about seceding, which means to separate from the Union. Because if you remember I talked to several lessons before. Um, there is nothing truly holding the states together. It's a voluntary thing. So at any point, a state can go away from the United States. And with Lincoln winning, you're going to find out in the next video how some states basically say adios because Lincoln wins and they know how he is towards slavery. So your last ending question is this. Using what you already know, do you think the Civil War was inevitable or could it have been avoided? So in other words, was it going to happen no matter what? Or do you think there was a way that it could have been avoided for however long? Forever or for a little bit? Okay, so when you start off your writing, it should start off as I think that the Civil War was inevitable, or I think the Civil War could have been avoided because, and you give your explanation. Okay, now once you're finished with that, make sure your name's on your paper. And when you show up to class, put it in the black basket next to the door, and you are done. You will get full credit. Again, be sure that your notes are done correctly, that these questions are written in complete sentences, and just let me know how you felt about these videos. Okay? I hope you did an amazing job. I'm sure you did. And I hope to see you in class. Okay? So, have a good day.